All right, everybody, listen, welcome to Soul Detox SOS. I think we are officially at day number 7, I believe this is. Let me commend you, celebrate you, salute you, love on you for continuing to ride the journey out with us. Now, I want you to hit that share button. I want you to hit that thumbs up button. And I want you to subscribe. Now, yesterday, we moved into the second part of this journey, and we started dealing with the O in the SOS. We took several days and dealt with the first S, which is self. Now we are focusing on the O, which relates to others, and it's all about creating dynamic, life-giving, authentic, fruit-bearing interpersonal relationships with others. Now, my relationship philosophy might be a little left of center or right of center compared to perhaps some of the other schools of thought when it comes to relationships, which probably doesn't surprise you by now because you probably have taken note of the fact that I am somewhat of a divergent thinker. I don't think my way of thinking is better than anyone's, nor do I think it is inferior to anyone's. Sometimes it's just different. So my relationship philosophy is influenced in part by scripture, of course, but it is also influenced in part by experience, and it is also influenced in part by the streets, if you will. So in our one-on-one session or our group session, Deeper Contact, which happens immediately after this on Zoom, if you're registered, then you already know how to access us for that webinar. I'm going to deal with restoring broken trust, and we'll talk a little bit about that more later in this general session. However, let's jump into this, okay? So healthy relationships, I believe that healthy relationships are like gold. As a matter of fact, I think that relationships are invaluable social capital. I think it is terrible and that it is unfulfilling and it is not healthy when people have amassed all other kinds of success, but they struggle in relationships. And yet that is a real challenge for so many people. Now, when I talk about relationships in this format, in this setting, I'm not necessarily speaking or referring to romantic relationships or work relationships or sibling relationships, parent and child relationships, BFF relationships. I'm referring to relationships as a whole. And some of the things that I'm going to share with you in our time in this setting, I really believe that if you internalize them and if you put them to practice and consider them, that they will probably add value to the way in which you approach relationships. Now, I am skeptical when I read things that deal with a specific aspect of relationships categorically. Let me give you an example. I'm skeptical about material that suggests that all children have to receive the exact same amount of whatever the case may be. I'm skeptical when I read books or articles about 12 things that every man must have, or 15 things that every woman wants to have and needs in her life. Not because there is not, I think, a measure of credibility and validity to some of the content that is written there, but by and large, I really believe that every relationship is unique because I believe that people are unique. So I believe every relationship is unique and that people come together for a variety of different reasons. And not only do people come together for a variety of different reasons. But I believe also that people come together having come from a variety of different places. So depending on where you're coming from, socially, educationally, morally, faith-wise, and etc., I think that at times will have an impression on the way you function and flow in relationships. See, part of what defines a healthy relationship is sharing a common goal for exactly what you hope to gain, benefit, and accomplish as a result of the relationship as a whole. Sometimes people end up being friends and they didn't even necessarily set out to be friends, but they found something in the other that clicked, that jived, that resonated, and pow, it forms into what at times is a wonderful lifelong friendship and relationship. Relationships, again, I believe are unique because people are very unique. No two people are exactly the same. No two people communicate exactly the same. And no two people are fundamentally hardwired exactly the same. Notice I didn't say similarly, I used the word exactly. Now, having said that, I do think that there are some bare bones, that there are some fundamentals, and that there is a relative amount of raw material that generally makes for healthy, authentic relationships. Let's talk about some of those things. So, from a fundamental standpoint, from a raw material standpoint, from a commonality standpoint, one of the things that I believe helps every relationship to be healthy. And again, it doesn't matter if it's an employee, employer, if it's a teacher and a student, if it's a coworker and a coworker, a teammate and a teammate, if it's a girlfriend and a boyfriend, doesn't matter. When it comes to just simply having authentic, wholesome relationships, one of the things that I believe is fundamental to every good and healthy relationship is, of course, communication. Now, that's probably not new information for you. You probably have heard the cliche that communication is key. And I believe that there's a lot of truth to that communication is very important to healthy, authentic relationships. See, good communication is one of the most important aspects to dynamic relationships. Even when you're starting a new friendship, you're starting a new relationship, you are starting a new work and a new job assignment, you're starting in a new career field, you're starting in a new school, you're starting to get to know someone, perhaps for the hopes and the potential of dating. How you and that person are able to communicate is really going to be formative to the relationship. Now, because everybody's everybody's communication rhythm is different. And no two people ideally share the exact communication rhythm. Some people are very good and spontaneous when it comes to communication. Other people need a minute to process, rehearse, rehash, and then respond. Some people are not necessarily as vocal or as verbal as others. Some people communicate by raising their voice. Others communicate through laughter when they are nervous. And so it is really important that not only is it important that you are aware of your communication cadence, but it is also important that you are sensitive to the communication cadence of others. It's not important that others talk like you. It's not important that others communicate like you. It is important that you are able to interpret what they are saying and that they are able to interpret what you are saying. If you ever find yourself communicating with someone and you're not quite sure exactly what it is that they are saying, try this little exercise. Once they finish, say this to them. I could be wrong, but it sounds like to me that what you're saying is, or tell me if I'm right. But what I think I'm hearing you say is, and sometimes you will be surprised that what you have heard is not actually what the other person intended for you to hear based upon how they were communicating. Is it work? Yes. But is it worth it? Yes, it's worth it. It's important to be able to talk about how you all are communicating and expressing yourselves with each other. Another thing when it comes to communication is it is really important to understand that the goal of communication is not always persuasion. See, communication doesn't have to be a debate. One of the fundamental goals and purposes of communication is having the opportunity to hear and to be heard. You may agree, you may not agree, but giving each other the opportunity to hear and be heard provides you with a dynamic opportunity to get, be, and stay on the same page. So communication goes an incredible distance in healthy, life-giving, fruit-bearing, authentic relationships. Another thing that I believe is equally important. Now, the things I'm sharing with you, I'm not sharing them with you as necessarily this is the number one, this is the number two, this is the number three. I think trying to approach it from that standpoint is like asking what's more important, your kidneys or your lungs. Both of them are vitally important. They serve two different purposes, but they both serve a necessary and an essential purpose. So try not to receive this as this is the number one thing, this is the number two thing, this is the number three thing, because I really do believe that all of these things are equally important. So finding a communication balance that you're both comfortable with is just as important as everything else. Speaking of everything else, another fundamental, bare bones, raw material element and aspect of what really makes relationships tick, work, and thrive is respect. Oh my goodness. Respect will carry you so far. See, even when you're communicating, listening to the person that you're talking to like you're actually listening to them and not just waiting to speak. I think I mentioned something about that to you last week. And trying to understand their perspective. It doesn't mean you have to agree with their perspective, but just simply trying to understand their perspective. That is a key way of showing respect in your relationship. Even if you disagree about something, having the ability to respect their opinions, to respect their choices, to respect their feelings, and not being so heavy-handed on trying to persuade them to see and understand why their way is dumb and stupid and whatever the case may be, even if it kind of is. You want to be mindful of the way you approach that respectfully. See, in a healthy relationship, both parties in the relationship, or all parties in the relationship, have a mutual respect for one another. And just because you don't see eye to eye, it doesn't mean necessarily that one person needs to change their mind in order for your relationship to work. That's actually a form of passive aggressiveness on the part of the person that's trying to persuade the other person to change their mind. And it can also border manipulation. We're not saying or suggesting that people shouldn't be open to change, nor are we saying or suggesting that people should not realize the need to change. But what we are saying is that in healthy, please do not miss this, in healthy, dynamic, authentic relationships, sometimes the most respectful thing you can do is give the person the space and the opportunity that they need in order to be able to make the change. If a person makes a change for you, then you kind of run the risk that when you upset them and disappoint them, that they're going to revert. But when the change that they make is born out of something authentically that inherently comes from them, that is often a change that's going to be much more sustainable. So respect a person's journey, respect their cadence, respect where they are, and respect that sometimes people need a little more time than others in order to turn the corner on certain things. Another key way to establish respect in a relationship, I believe, is to be considerate of people's privacy and boundaries. See, I don't believe that you're entitled necessarily to know every single thing about an individual or to have access to every single part of their lives. And there will be times when people will hold on to things and they won't bring things to you right in the heat of the moment. It may be days that go by or weeks that go by, sometimes months that go by before they actually bring something to you. Well, even then, it is important that you respect that sometimes people need time to process things. Sometimes people need time to figure out what something means to them before they share it with others and invite others to be a part of the solution. So respect and boundaries are very, very critical. And having a high level of respect, enough respect to make sure that you are not making whatever situation or circumstances any of your friendships or relationships may be having at any particular time about you. If it's their situation, respect the fact that it is their situation and try not to impose your personal sentiments out of a form of guilting them for the sake and the cause of either violating their privacy or overstepping a boundary that has either been spoken or has been unspoken when it comes to whatever it is that one of your friends or relationships may be dealing with or facing at a particular time. When people understand that you respect them as individuals, and when people understand that you respect and value their boundaries, they oftentimes will be much more apropos to bring things to you that they otherwise would have delayed. Speaking of boundaries, let's talk a little bit more about boundaries, okay? Because we all have personal boundaries. We all have personal boundaries. We have things that we're good with. We have things that we're not good with. We have things that we're comfortable with. We have things that we're not comfortable with. We have things that make us feel safe. We have things that do not make us feel safe. Well, in a healthy, authentic relationship, it is really critical that each person be able to 100% fully communicate whatever those boundaries may be. It can be very easy in relationships for someone to get to the point where they have a sense of entitlement. And sometimes when a person gets a sense of entitlement, it pushes them to cross and overstep boundaries that could actually make the other person very, very uncomfortable. I see this often. I see this a lot, especially in dating and in marriage, where someone will find something out about the person that they've been dating or the person that they're married to that could have happened eons ago. And sometimes the other party gets upset or feels some kind of way because they were not told this by the person that they're dating or by the person that they're married to. And it could have been something that happened eons of years ago, before the two people even met. That is a boundary for some people. Now, conversely, please also understand this, that when it comes to boundaries, there is a difference between boundaries and not disclosing things that really have the potential to impact the rhythm and the flow of the relationship overall. Something else that's really important and fundamental to healthy, life-giving, authentic relationships is support. One of the best things about being in healthy, authentic relationships with people is having a support system. We talked a little bit about this yesterday when we discussed what the first problem in the world was. I'm not going to give it away because if you missed it, I want you to go back and watch that video from yesterday. But one of the incredible things that God has given to us in each other is support. And we all need support. We could not make it without the support of others. And it's awesome and amazing when you have people who are in close proximity in your life that you can look to for support, and people who know that they can look to you for support as well. Now, later this week, we're going to get more into this whole idea of what you should expect to get out of a relationship based upon the kind of relationship that it is. But some of the most dynamic relationships are relationships that are supportive, relationships that are filled with empathy, relationships that are filled with compassion, relationships that are filled with honesty and integrity. And sometimes the support is pointing out the blind spots to an individual, bringing and calling things to their attention that they otherwise cannot see on their own. Because supportive partners in a relationship always want what is best for the other. I'll say that again. Supportive partners in a relationship always want what is best for each other. And they will never do anything to keep you from being at your best. In a healthy, supportive relationship, you are not only able to receive what you need to thrive, but you also are able to give others what they need in order to be able to thrive. Let's talk about something else that's important and fundamental to healthy, authentic, life-giving relationships. Patience, 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 patience. Dynamic relationships are born over time. They have to be tested. They have to be tried. They have to be proven. And sometimes we abandon what could really be great friendships, great working relationships, great camaraderie, great partnerships, great teamwork. Sometimes we abandon relationships that really have the potential of adding value to our lives because sometimes we're not patient enough. It takes patience to learn communication between you and your homies, your friends, your partners. It takes patience to be able to feel comfortable at times to clearly articulate boundaries. And sometimes it takes patience giving other people an opportunity to know and learn how to respect your boundaries. It takes patience to figure out when to rush in with support and when to stand back with support. Because again, no two people are exactly the same. So the group of friends that you have at work or your number one coworker on your job versus the person that you play golf with or play spades with on the weekend, those are two completely and totally different people. And if you're really interested in growing in your friendship with them, then it is going to take and require a measure of patience. So try not to fall into this popular society misnomer or philosophy of cancel culture, if you will. Number one, that is not biblical. Being patient. The Bible refers to it as patience. The Bible also refers to it as long suffering, is a fundamental strength in healthy dynamic relationships. Something else I want to share with you that I think is important for healthy, authentic relationships. Conflict. That's right, conflict. You will learn more about how a person handles conflict than you can learn having 15 lunches with them. You can learn more about a person based upon how they handle conflict than you can on a 7-day girls trip or vacation with them or whatever the case may be. You can really learn a lot about another person when conflict is involved. You can learn a lot about yourself when it comes to that other person when there's conflict. And you can learn a lot about the relationship when it comes to conflict as well. I tell my children, particularly my adult children, I tell them when you get to the point in life where you think you are getting interested in marrying someone, try to have at least one disagreement with them. Don't pick a fight, but try not to get too serious about them unless and until you've had at least one disagreement with them, because conflict exposes the heart. See, when we're in the throes of conflict, we bring up and we bring out everything that's been irritating us that we've been holding on to. When we are in the throes of conflict, we're going to generally say some things that we perhaps have been wanting to say, but for whatever reason we hadn't been saying. Conflict exposes our hearts. Conflict tests the true limits of the relationship. Conflict also is a very good barometer for the resilience or lack of resilience that the relationship has. Can you come back from a disagreement? Can you bounce back from an argument? Can you bounce back from not seeing things eye to eye? So in that, conflict also is an incredible opportunity for us to be able to not necessarily just go through with the people we're in relationship with, but it gives us an opportunity to be able to grow through things that we are dealing with concerning those that we are in friendship and relationship with. Last but not least is trust. I'm running out of time, so I don't have a lot of time to say anything about trust, unfortunately. But trust is really, really important. I'm going to be dealing with, in our closed session, what do you do? What do you do when trust is broken? Now, let me close with this. I really believe that there is I really believe that there are a few big things that really make for unhealthy relationships. And I think that categorically they come down to these particular things, that when you really think about it, that many times in one way or another, unhealthy relationships are generally marked either by lies, by control, or by manipulation. Lies. Now, the reason why people lie is all lies are rooted in fear. That's a whole nother lesson. But all lies are rooted in fear. People don't lie because they have to lie. People lie because they are afraid of the consequences of the truth. Ooh, that was good, wasn't it? and it was free as well. But not only is lies oftentimes categorically something that ruins what could otherwise be healthy and dynamic relationships, but the need to try to control, the need to try to control, the need to try to control. It's going to be this way and it's going to only be this way. Even with men who are husbands, the Bible says that the husband is the head of the wife. That's not about control, nor is it about a power struggle. That's about leading, and that's about guiding. And even that is a whole different lesson right there. I'm over time, but let me say something about how dangerous manipulation is in relationships as well. If ever you have to be manipulative to get from a person the thing that you're thriving after, that is absolutely a sign and an indication that you are in an unhealthy relationship pattern. If those three things exist, you want to deal with them right away. It doesn't mean you have to throw the relationship away. It doesn't mean you have to abandon the relationship. But it does mean that there is some work to do to turn those dynamics in that relationship around. I appreciate you all, and thank you so much for your time. Those of you that are with us in deeper contact, come on over onto the webinar. We will be over there. The rest of you, thank you for joining us in our general session of Soul Detox SOS. I really would appreciate it if you would hit that thumbs up button. I would appreciate it if you would subscribe, and I would also appreciate it if you found some people to share this with. All right, God willing, we'll see you tomorrow. Take care.